Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through the research so you get the insights you need, fast. Today, we're tackling something pretty common, this paradox where you set these huge goals, like a 5-year money plan, 10 years for your career, and then, well, you just fizzle out. It leads to failure or just feeling completely demotivated.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Everyone knows that feeling. You're all fired up at the start, right? You map out this big, amazing vision, the outcome you really want, but then you start breaking it down. Okay, 10 years. That's what? 3,650 days of needing to do something specific, and suddenly the sheer size of it it crushes you.
Exactly. That initial buzz just vanishes. You're looking at this mountain of effort, and the finish line feels like impossibly far off. But the research we looked at really hammers this point home. The problem isn't usually the size of the goal. It's where your focus is. It's aimed wrong at that distant result.
That's the core insight. We all want the outcomes, of course. The success, the money, mastering a skill. But the shift needs to happen away from what we want in the future, towards the action in this moment. It's about becoming the kind of person who achieves those things. So stop looking 10 years out. Ask, what's the single best thing I can do right now?
That changes the whole game, doesn't it? Okay, so to really get why this shift works, we need to dig into the mechanics behind it. We should probably quickly lay out the difference between, good and bad goals in this context, and then get into how to use your brain's own chemistry, that motivation system, to actually make the hard work feel, well, good, almost irresistible.
Okay, let's start with the basics. Most people, when they set goals, are using what we'd call results-based goals. These are totally focused on the end state. I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want my business to hit X revenue. And look, these are important. You need a destination, right? But focusing on that outcome every single day, it's tough because you're always measuring yourself against something you haven't achieved yet. That just breeds frustration.
Right. You're constantly reminded of the gap. So the pivot is towards action-based goals, meaning you narrow the focus way down, like just the next hour, or maybe just today. And the question becomes, what action do I need to take right now to be acting like the person I want to become?
So it's about the present behavior, not the future result.
Exactly. And to make those present actions actually stick, we got to talk brain chemistry, specifically dopamine. It gets thrown around a lot. Usually it's used. People think it's the main pleasure chemical. But that's actually closer to things like serotonin. Serotonin is more about feeling content, satisfied, in the moment. Everything's okay right now.
Ah, interesting. So dopamine isn't about feeling good now. It's different. It's almost the opposite, yeah. Dopamine is fundamentally the neurochemical of pursuit. It drives motivation. It drives the feeling of wanting more. It's very much external focused. When you get that dopamine hit, your brain basically registers excitement and says, okay, whatever I just did that led to this feeling, I need to do that again. And here's the kicker, the part you can control, that release. It's totally subjective. You get to decide what counts as a reason to celebrate, what triggers that release.
Oh, okay. That reframes everything. If I can consciously decide what triggers that chemical reward, I can literally train my brain to enjoy the effort itself, to crave the grind. That must be how people stick with really hard things long term.
That is the entire idea. We call this the dopamine reward system, or DRS for short. It's basically a deliberate, subjective way to give yourself an immediate reward. You use this loop to get your brain to release dopamine right after you do a task that's part of the process, the long journey, not just when you hit the final result way down the line.
Okay, but how does that little immediate reward actually help me stick with, say, a 10-year plan?
Yeah.
What's the brain science there?
So when dopamine is released, it actually strengthens the neural connections, the pathways involved in the behavior that happened just before the celebration. It's like a biological marker saying, hey, brain, this specific action, valuable, repeat it. It creates this positive reinforcement loop hardwired into your neurology. It makes doing that thing again more likely and eventually makes the habit feel easier, almost automatic.
That's fascinating. So when we look at the greats, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, top CEOs, whoever, we always talk about their dedication, their obsession. But is this the secret sauce? Something beyond just sheer willpower?
Yes. The research strongly suggests that they, whether they knew it consciously or just stumbled into it, built a really effective dopamine reward system for themselves. They genuinely fell in love with the process, the struggle, the practice, the daily grind of becoming better. That's why you see these incredibly successful people who could retire 10 times over, still working like crazy. They love the doing of it, the money, the accolades, the championships. Those become almost like byproducts of their devotion to the daily task itself.
Let's make that concrete.
Right.
Kobe Bryant is a perfect example, right?
Yeah.
His focus wasn't only on winning rings.
Not primarily, no. His obsession was with being the absolute best player he could possibly be. peak performance. So he'd set these insane action goals, like getting up at 4 a.m. to practice. Why? Partly because he knew his competition was still asleep. And when he finished that workout, he didn't just go home. He'd consciously celebrate that act. The fact that he put in the work while others rested, that internal, yes, I did it, that released dopamine. And that made getting up at 4 a.m. the next day just a tiny bit easier, more likely. The 5 championships, amazing, obviously. But they were the result of that relentless, celebrated process.
Okay, this brings up a really key point about us humans. If the big goal takes years delayed gratification, why are we generally so bad at it? Why do we crave instant results?
It goes way back. Think ancestral survival. 100,000 years ago, your survival depended on what you did right now. Finding food, finding shelter, staying safe, it was all immediate. Our biology evolved with this incredibly strong bias towards the present moment. That primal wiring explains our modern obsession with instant gratification. Waiting feels unnatural, even dangerous on some deep level.
Okay, so that's the conflict right there. Saving for retirement takes decades. Getting fit takes months or years. These massive goals demand delayed gratification. But our basic biology is screaming for a reward now.
Precisely. Our ambitions require patience, but our brains crave immediacy. So the strategy isn't to fight biology, it's to work with it. You have to essentially hijack the system, use that dopamine reward system, the DRF, to give yourself powerful, immediate gratification for doing the actions that lead to those long-term payoffs.
Right. So instead of waiting years for the financial freedom goal to feel good, you find a way to feel good about, I don't know, sticking to your budget tonight. Give me a really practical, like, what does this look like day to day?
Okay, think about something you resist doing. Maybe making sales calls or starting a tough project. There's friction there, right? So the moment you complete just one call, or maybe even just open the document you've been avoiding, you pause immediately. And you give yourself some real specific internal praise. Like, yes, I'm so proud of myself for just starting that when I really didn't want to. Or, okay, you tackled the hardest part first. That deserves a mental high five.
I get the concept, but does that little reward lose its punch? If I'm celebrating every tiny little thing, does my brain just get used to it? Does it stop being motivating?
That's a really good question, and it highlights why the type of reward matters. We're not talking about giving yourself a cookie every time. It's about the internal self-talk, the self-acknowledgement. When you say, I'm proud of the effort I just put in, or I acted in line with the person I want to be, you're reinforcing your identity. You're celebrating the becoming, not just ticking a box. And that kind of internal validation focused on effort and identity doesn't seem to lose its potency in the same way external treats might. Let's take finance again. Maybe you hate opening your budgeting app. The action isn't get rich today, it's spend 15 minutes in the app. So you do the 15 minutes and then you immediately celebrate that compliance. Good job, you faced the numbers. You're literally rewiring your brain to associate a bit of pleasure with that friction point.
So you're praising the good actions and, crucially, just kind of ignoring the times you slip up.
Exactly. That's so important. Don't beat yourself up. If you plan to go to the gym and didn't, okay, fine. Don't dwell on it. Instead, focus all your energy on rewarding the next positive action. When you do go, celebrate showing up. Celebrate finishing one set when you felt like quitting. Praise the good, ignore the bad. This works for everything. Celebrating waking up on time. Celebrating making that one difficult phone call. Or celebrating putting your phone down and being truly present with your kids for an hour. Instant reward for the desired behavior.
This is tying together really well.
Yeah.
But let's just make sure we're grounded. Do we still need those big 5, 10-year goals? Or should we just forget them and focus only on the daily actions?
No, you absolutely still need the long-term goals. 100%. They serve a critical purpose. They set the direction. They allow you to ask the essential questions. Okay, who do I need to become to achieve that? And based on that, what specific actions do I need to take day in and day out? But once you have those answers, once you know the necessary daily actions, then your mental focus has to shift entirely. Shift away from the distant outcome and focus completely on executing and celebrating today's actions.
I actually use this myself without maybe fully realizing the science behind it then. I wanted to get into the best shape of my life. For years, I had these outcome goals. Lift X weight, gain Y muscle. And I was super inconsistent. Then I just completely dropped the outcome focus.
Okay, interesting. And what did you focus on instead? What became the goal?
Just the action. Simply. Show up at the gym 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah.
That was it. Didn't matter what I did there. Initially lift heavy, do yoga, just move. And the key was, after I showed up, especially on days I didn't feel like it, I'd consciously tell myself, dude, I am so proud of you for showing up when you wanted to bail. Or, hey, you pushed out 1 extra rep. Nice. that internal praise.
And I bet the results just sort of happened, right? The best shape of your life goal probably took care of itself eventually because you trained your brain to actually enjoy or at least get a positive kick from the required effort. The outcome just becomes the natural endpoint of a system you built.
Totally. The action itself became easier, even enjoyable, because I wasn't waiting for some distant reward. I was giving myself one right then and there. It wasn't just about fitness. It built a template for tackling other hard things.
So that's really the core takeaway for everyone listening. The goal, the destination, it's important to define it, but it's ultimately just the byproduct. It's the consequence of consistently taking the right daily actions and, crucially, celebrating yourself for doing them. You have to be your own hype person every single day.
Right. The big goals tell you where you're going, but it's the daily action, the celebrated process. That's the engine that gets you there. You have to make that conscious choice to reward yourself internally, praise yourself for taking those steps, especially the difficult ones.
So the clear instruction is, figure out your big, long-term goals. Then ask two crucial questions. One, what specific actions do I need to take each day? And two, maybe even more important, how can I give myself an immediate, genuine reward every single day just for taking those actions? Do that consistently, and you'll likely find those big goals just materialize, almost as a side effect of enjoying the journey.
Okay, and before we wrap up, here's a final thought for you to take away and chew on. Given that we know we're wired for instant gratification, how can you look at the areas in your life where delayed gratification feels the most painful right now? Maybe it's finances, maybe education, maybe relationship work. And how can you engineer an immediate reward for the smallest, most essential positive action you can take in that area today? How can you make that struggle start to feel, if not easy, then at least genuinely rewarding?